Parents often believe that if their child isn't cooperating, they just need more control, more consequences, more strictness, and more authority. But here's the paradox of that. The more we try to control our children, the more resistance we often get. So today we're going to talk about why control actually backfires, what's happening inside your child's brain and their nervous system, and how to create conditions to create more cooperation at home. Let's start with something important. Children are wired for autonomy. From toddlerhood, their brains are developing a sense of agency and independence and self-direction. When children are feeling overly controlled, their nervous system often moves into defense mode. Psychologists often sometimes refer to this as counter control. So when a person resists or pushes back against the attempts to control them. You see this in everyday parenting. You say, put your shoes on. Your child suddenly acts like putting on their shoes is the worst thing that has ever happened to them. But here's the key. Often they aren't resisting the task. They are resisting the feeling of being controlled. No child, or adult for that matter, likes to feel like they're being controlled. And children often have little control over so many things in their lives. They're told when they have to be in school, what they have to do in school, when to get home. Then we put them in organized sports. They're told what to do there, how to practice. Then they get home and they're told it's time for bedtime. So when we add control in other areas of their life, then they fight it. And research consistently shows that when parenting relies heavily on psychological control, children actually show more difficulties with emotional regulation and anxiety. So control doesn't really create internal motivation. It creates external pressure for our kids. The pressure to do it, or this consequence will happen. In one way, we're telling our children not to think for themselves and then expecting they do it in other situations. And this external pressure often leads to resistance. So let's talk about my favorite thing, the brain. Children don't cooperate when their brains feel threatened. When a child feels shame, pressured, or yelled at or controlled, their brain actually shifts into that survival state. Their amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes more active. When that alarm system is activated, thinking decreases, reasoning decreases, impulse control decreases. In other words, the exact skills we want our children to use in that moment goes offline. So when we say things like, stop acting like that, or you need to calm down, their brain literally can't access those skills yet. So cooperation requires access to the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of their brain. And that part of the brain turns back on when a child feels safe, connected, and understood. So connection is what calms the nervous system enough for cooperation to happen. This is not just a theory. Research on parenting consistently shows that autonomy supportive parenting helps children to develop stronger self-regulation skills. Autonomy support includes things like guidance instead of force, scaffolding skills instead of controlling, and respecting the child's pace. So studies that show when parents support autonomy, children develop stronger executive functioning skills and problem-solving abilities. Another study found that when parents respond to children with warmth and autonomy support, children showed stronger inhibitory control and self-regulation control over time. What does that basically mean? It means that connection is building the brain skills that eventually lead to cooperation. Control might produce short-term obedience, but connection builds long-term regulation and cooperation. Cooperation's not just a behavior. It's a signal of their nervous system state. It lets us know where they're at. When children feel safe and connected, they're generally in a regulated state. In this state, children can listen, they can think and problem solve, they could collaborate. All of this, of course, keeping in mind their developmental age and their abilities. But when children feel threatened or controlled, their nervous system shifts out of that connection into fight, flight, freeze. So when parents say, my child never listens, often the real question is, what state is their nervous system in? Cooperation is happening when their nervous system feels safe. And one of the fastest ways to bring the nervous system back into safety is through connection. I would say that most of us parents don't want to be controlling, but many of us were raised in systems where control was the main tool used. Maybe you heard things like, because I said so, or stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about, or go to your room. Those experiences wired your nervous systems too. So when our child melts down, when they argue with us, or when they just refuse to listen to us, our nervous system may interpret that as a loss of control. And here's the amazing thing. Our brains are trying to restore safety the only way it has learned how, and that's by tightening our control. So what often happens is our children actually need us in that moment as a co-regulator, understanding and guidance, not more pressure, but we revert to that nervous system state ourselves. So we have to work on flipping that script for ourselves. This is why parenting can feel so triggering, because it activates our own wiring. So what works then if control is going to backfire? Well, we need to add connection. And adding connection doesn't mean being permissive. Connection means seeing the child behind the behavior, helping them regulate their nervous system, guiding instead of overpowering, scaffolding when they need it. It might sound like, I see that you're really frustrated. Let's figure this out together. I know it's hard to stop playing. Connection lowers defensiveness. And when defensiveness drops, cooperation can rise. Also, keep in mind that when we're giving empathetic statements, it's not just, oh, let me just say this. I know this is hard, and move on. Our child hasn't moved on. I want you to look at the pace that your child is in. That might require sitting with them for a second. That might require you coming closer and getting on their level, spending 5 minutes with them. But I promise those 5 minutes or those 10 minutes you put in now, they're going to negate the 20 minutes you spend trying to control your child's behavior to get the shoes on and get out the door. If control worked, parenting would be so much easier. But the research and the brain science actually show us that children cooperate best when they feel safe, connected, and respected. So connection is not the opposite of structure. Connection is what makes structure work. So the next time your child resists you, pause and ask yourself this. Is my child being difficult, or is their nervous system asking for some connection? Was cooperation something you experienced growing up, or was the main strategy controlling you? I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe.